Hello, everybody, and welcome to an unexpected and delightful extra rowing chat. Today, I have got three wonderful guests who are all on the Rowing New Zealand team. We have Robbie Manson, Tom Murray, and Michael Brake. Guys, welcome to Rowing Chat.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Now, let's kick off with each of you telling the listeners just a little bit about yourself and your personal background in rowing. Robbie, you go first.
So I started rowing when I was 16 at Marlborough Boys College. I went to the London Olympics in the men's quad, and then the Rio Olympics in the men's double, and then last year I was in the single and broke the world record. So I guess I've progressed through the boats from the quad to the double to the single, and yeah, that's sort of.
Did they give you a framed something for a world record?
You do get it. There is a printout you can get, but I know there's so much going on at the time that I didn't end up getting one. So
we'll see if we can fix that for you. Tom?
Well, I went to Marlborough Boys College as well as Robbie. I was a few years after Robbie, but I started while I was 16, under 16 as well, was my first season. Made it to the junior New Zealand team in 2012 with Michael Brake actually in the Cox 4. We won in Bulgaria that year. Following that was under 23s in the New Zealand team for 2 years in the men's 8, and I stayed at that men's 8 for all the way to the 2016 Olympics in Rio. We became sixth in the end there. And then following that was Jamie Hunter in the pair last year. So that was my first year in the pair after Hamish and Eric stepped down. So it was cool to be able to try something a little bit different. And originally made the pair again this year with Michael. Following a few injuries, the boat changed around a bit, and I'm now with Phil. But the year's not finished yet. I mean, there's a few more trials to come, so we'll see where we end up.
Great. Michael?
Well, Tom's already really painted my pathway. Most of my crews have been with him. I started at the school when I was 13 years old. My first New Zealand team was 2012 for the under-19s. That was the Cox 4 that Tom talked about. There was 1 year in there in 2014 where I did under-23s that Tom and I weren't in the same crew. I was in the under-23 Cox 4 that year where we claimed silver. Following that, I joined back up with Tom again, this time the men's 8, which, as Tom said, we qualified for Rio. We came 6th. Then last year, 2017, I unfortunately I was out for injury for the majority of the year. That was most of our summer, which is the European winter. And then after that, when we came around to trials, I was out for the trials. So unfortunately, I missed the World Cup campaigns. But then we had a second trial in between World Cup 3 and World Champs. Unfortunately, I was reselected for the men's 8. Last year, we ended up coming 6th again in Sarasota. Then this year, I was selected initially for the pair with Tom. Now, for my second year in a row, I have become injured. So for the next 3 months, I'll be out, which led to a decision being made for one of the guys from the men's 8 to be brought up into the pair, Phil Wilson. And I'll be out again until the retrial for World Champs this year.
Thank you, guys. That's brilliant. Now, the world of elite rowing is a mystery to most of us lesser mortals who've never been in an elite team. So can you tell us a little bit about what is a normal training week like for you when you're down at Karapiro, which is the home of New Zealand rowing? Tom?
It starts off pretty early. I hate being rushed, so I get up with plenty of time. So it's normally, the alarm normally goes at 5:30 in the morning, and I'll get up and take my time having some breakfast. And on the bigger days, it can be up to 3 times a day down at the lake. We have a gym down at the lake, a weights gym. So it might be 2 water sessions and a weights indoor weight session. a day, but that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We have a double session in the morning, and get that Saturday afternoon off, and rest up on a Sunday for a peak performance the following week.
Robbie, what's your favourite bit of the average training week?
Saturday afternoon. No, so that's what I quite like about being in the single now is there is a little bit more flexibility. So I feel like my training plan really does suit me. So every morning's on the water. Generally, the water's better, a little bit flatter and calmer, and it's a little bit more structured. Then twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays, I do weights during the middle of the day, and then the afternoon's always a little bit varied. So it might be on the erg or on the bike, or sometimes it's another row. And we might have a plan for what we might do during the week, but then it's always flexible depending on the conditions and depending on how my body's feeling too. So if my back's getting a bit tight or ribs or something are feeling a bit niggly, then I can just adjust that depending on how it is during the day.
So, Michael, though, from your time in the 8, of course, if one man in an 8's crew is back feeling tight, how do they accommodate that?
Well, if peer pressure wasn't enough to keep them in the boat, we've got the reserves, which would usually step in place there. For the team, we usually only have, for the whole of the men's suite, we'll have one stroke sider and one bow sider reserve. And so if they are currently being used in another boat, that's when we have to start compromising and breaking down into a smaller boat if we're training in the 8. So that's when we'll go into maybe a 4 and a pair, or if it's looking like it's only going to be a one-off, then we'll just go and do an erg session, or we'll go and do a session on the road on our bikes. Something like that. Yeah, it can be a challenge in the 8 when there's a few injuries, because you can't row an 8 without 8 people, as everyone's probably quite aware. But I mean, that's part of the beauty of the 8's racing, is that if you can get 8 guys to world champs, 8 guys or girls to world champs that have had some really good training and are getting the boat absolutely humming, that's when you get some good racing and some good results.
I was very fortunate earlier in my life to share a flat with Harry Mahon, the legendary coach, and he was at the time coaching the Great Britain guys in an 8 to get to the Sydney Olympics. And over the 4-year Olympic cycle, there were 24 separate men who were in that boat when it raced internationally. So that's how many men it takes to get to the Olympics. So I fully appreciate the challenges. Now, you've all obviously been on the national team now for several years, and clearly injury is something that happens. Tell us a little bit about how the system is set up to help and support you should you get to a point where your body's under stress, not necessarily injured. Robbie, what happens?
So we have a couple of physios on site every day. So they're the first point of call for an injury. And then twice a week on a Tuesday and Thursday, we also have the doctor there. So if there's something a little bit more serious, they might take a look at it. And yeah, it's really just about managing the injuries with the physio, the coach, and the doctor, and sometimes nutritionists as well, to get the, I guess, best outcome to get back in the boat as soon as you can, to get back on with training, or modifying training in a way that you're not going to lose too much. And I guess that's where the physiologists come in as well, and just really make sure that we're still on track, whether we're training on the bike or something like that, just to maintain fitness.
So, Tom, you're injured at the moment. What's your injury?
Unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, I broke 3 of my toes.
How?
I was being towed behind a boat on a biscuit at a mate's stag do, and it was 2 minutes into the stag do. It was the very first activity, and it was so early in the activity that not everybody had arrived, and I'd been on the biscuit for 20 seconds, and we hit a big wave, another boat's wave, and immediately I knew something was wrong with my foot, and I turned around, and I could tell by the new angles in my toes that I'd done something bad. Initially, I thought it was just a dislocation, and we debated whether or not to pull it back in ourselves. And I'm very glad we didn't do that in the end. Once it was X-rayed at the A&E, I had 3 broken and 2 dislocated toes. So it's a bit of a setback. It's about 4 weeks straight away, and however long afterwards to get everything back right again. And it's a lot of the injuries come from rowing itself, which are unavoidable, but it does really sort of suck to do it outside of rowing and then have to go back and sit on nothing at the moment. It's I can't cycle and I can't erg really at the moment, so it's a lot of just trying to find things that can keep me fit without actually using my legs. It's a big challenge.
So you can't even swim?
No, not at this point.
So what are you doing? I'm fascinated now. I have visions of you doing one-legged yoga or something.
So we have a device called the Schwinn, and it's a cycle machine that has arm pump levers on it as well. And so I ignore the pedals and just sit there and pump away on the arm machine, and I do upper body weights. So it's a lot of small things in the end that make up my day of training. But it's every day I'm trying to think of something new to keep everything fresh and not spend 4 weeks doing one activity and blow a gasket doing that.
Yeah. On the dynamic erg, surely you can do one-legged rowing.
I have tried that, but it unbalances my back. And so if I want to put lots of pressure on, I'm going to end up injuring my back. And so I don't need any more injuries at this point.
I have visions of you with a skateboard under your injured foot as you roll backwards and forwards.
Yes, there were 3 days there where I must have had 10 or 20 people come up to me and tell me they saw a video of Sonny Bill Williams rolling on a skateboard on the erg, and I said, no, it just doesn't work for me. I've had problems with my back before, and I don't want to play with the devil on that one.
So, Michael, you've got your arm in a cast, rather obviously. Tell us about it.
My story is a rather boring one. I wasn't actually doing anything like being towed behind a boat at 35 kilometers an hour or anything like that. I was simply just cleaning up at my parents' rental property, and I slipped on a wet surface. I had a bucket in one hand. I fell back, and it's funny how your brain works in these situations, but my instant thought was, I don't want to spill this bucket over the surface that I'm cleaning. So I went down quite hard on my right hand and incidentally crushed my wrist. At the time, being someone who's rather fit and young, I didn't expect that kind of fall I could injure myself so seriously. So when I went down, I think I probably pushed up off the same hand that went down, and instantly I felt, I didn't feel pain, but I felt there was something not right. I think there was probably quite a bit of adrenaline coursing through the body at this point in time, and so I ran over a bit of a mental checklist. I thought, is my back all right? Are my hips all right? Is my neck fine? They're all good. I looked at my left hand and it seemed fine, and then I looked at my right and I thought, okay. Something's not right here. It's not very straight. So it was a rush off to A&E, 4 days in hospital, and 1 surgery with 2 plates now and there. So
better watch out when you go through metal detectors at airports.
Yeah, get a nice wee card that I get to show them, I think, so that when I beep, they know that I've actually got something in my body that isn't going to cause any grievance on the plane. But yeah, it's a long road to recovery. It's about 6 weeks in a cast / splint, and then up to a further 6 weeks of mobility and strengthening work, just so that I can get range of motion and grip strength back in that wrist. So
for now, you're just cycling and erging with one arm, or do you attach the handle to a belt or something?
Well, kind of hurts having it down low. Anywhere below the heart tends to hurt. So everything I'm doing, I'm trying to keep it above my shoulders. So cycling, I have it set up on the watt bike. I can't go on the road. So on the watt bike, there's a bar that gets set up. Usually it's used for athletes that are kind of going through the stand down period for potential stress fractures. But in this case, I just prop my elbow up on the bar and it keeps my wrist above my heart. And that allows me to sit on the watt bike for however long I need to stay fit. Coming out of surgery, though, that was probably the most challenging period because having 2 cuts on my wrist with 7 stitches in each, I wasn't allowed to sweat because any sweat that could get in there could lead to infection, and that's kind of when you reach that point of an injury, it's more important to make sure that you don't get sick and you're actually recovering the wounds and the actual injury is healing before you then think about getting back on the bike, because there can be more serious implications if you get things like a bone infection or something like that. So that was a week and a half of not sweating. So I was
how unusual for you.
Yeah, honestly, there's moments in training where you think, really I'd love to just do nothing for a week, but when it actually comes around, it's torture. Yeah, going from full 25 hours a week training to absolutely nothing. So it was quite relieving to get back on the bike and get a bit of a sweat up.
So you guys as internationals, this is your job. This is what you do for a living. You must really love rowing. Robbie, what do you personally enjoy most about the sport?
I think there's a few things, like just simply being out there on the water. And like I worked straight out of school. I did an office job full time for a year on top of trying to train. And I really didn't enjoy the office, so maybe that motivated me to train a bit harder, and so I could do something that you're getting outside and doing something physical rather than sitting behind a computer. So I really enjoy that. But there's so much more to rowing, like getting to go overseas and race, and the friends and I guess teammates and everything that you have, like the opportunities and experiences you have through rowing. So I guess there's so much more to it than just the sport. Like when you're having a really good row, like you so enjoy sitting in a boat going backwards, but it's all the other things that sort of come with it. And I guess even like last year going to the head of the Charles and doing the Great 8 there and those sort of opportunities. And the friends you make all around the world is something that's really cool to do and be a part of.
Tom, what's your thing you enjoy most?
To add on to what Robbie was saying, I enjoy all of those things as well. But I love the feeling of fitness that I gain through rowing. I've always liked being fit. I played a lot of rugby when I was younger, but rowing gives you a different sort of fitness to running. And I love when I've got the time to take advantage of that fitness. I love having that fitness there for me to do and feel like I can do a lot of things.
And Michael, when you're doing a training session, what do you enjoy most about an actual training session?
An actual training session? Well, I guess it depends. If we're out on the water, which at the moment I'm not a lot at the moment, I'm quite a competitive person, and so being able to put distance on another crew, on your mates in particular, and have those kind of bragging rights after the session, I really enjoy that. We do squad pieces twice a week, so outside of training within men's sweep and with our crews, we'll go out and we'll do the whole Rowing New Zealand squad will compete, and we get these prognostic results, which are just percents of our world records, and we get to compare against each other. And coming off the water and having those bragging rights is really quite a bit of fun, and a bit of banter as well each week.
Tom, you're laughing. What do you want to add?
Oh, I'm thinking of the times where we've had those bragging rights and times we haven't. There is a fair bit of bragging that goes on and a bit of banter, like Michael was saying. It is a big part of the week.
And Robbie,
usually as well, it comes at the end of the week, and so everyone's just as tired. So it's a case of who can really go out there and hurt themselves the most while already as fatigued as they're going to be that week, and then come out and crawl off the water and go, ha ha, I beat you. It's quite fun.
It motivates you, I'm guessing.
It sure does.
And Robbie, what attracted you then to the single? Because you've explained you've gone quad, double, and now single. That's quite a move.
I think it's always been a boat that I've really enjoyed. I like the fact that it's all on me. And I guess like before I started rowing, I did equestrian, and part of the reason why I wanted to start rowing is because you're not relying on an animal or something else to go well. Like you train harder and you get the results. And then I guess it's always doing things in the single that I've enjoyed, but I never thought I was big enough or strong enough to be really competitive in the single. So naturally, I think the way the New Zealand team works is the small boats are the priority. So I came into the men's squad in 2010, having done a couple of years in under 23s. And then I guess just progressed like as I got better after the London Olympics. Then I was in the double for 4 years. And then after Rio, I thought, while I was still in Rio, actually, I sat down and talked to a couple of people and said I really want to do the single next year just to see how competitive I can be. And my goal was sort of, hopefully I can make the A final. If I could win a medal, that would be amazing. And then I had this goal of being selected in the single for New Zealand last year and winning the national champs. And I was really confident that that was achievable and I could do that. And then after the nationals in February last year, I sort of felt a little bit lost for a while. I had my wisdom teeth out, so I had to have 10 days off training from that. And then I sort of didn't really know how I'd stack up internationally. And because of that, I just felt a little bit lost and didn't know where I'd be. And then at one of the Winter Series races we had, I exceeded my expectations by a mile. And each day I got faster and faster. So the first day I thought I went well. The next day I went even better and thought I couldn't go any better than that. And then the last day I topped the team prognostics. So I guess that gave me a huge confidence boost. And then we had another Winter Series 3 weeks later, and I was about 2 or 3 seconds off the world record, which was way faster than I thought I was capable of. So I went over to Europe last year with quite a lot of confidence, but until doing those Winter Series races, I sort of didn't really know where I was going to stack up. But then, obviously struggled with injuries and sickness and things later in the year. So the result I had at World Champs, which was 5th, like if I had had that not knowing the results from the World Cups, I probably would have been quite happy with that. But then with what happened at the World Cups, in the end, it was quite disappointing.
It's an interesting pathway, and I'm guessing you guys tread a kind of knife edge between training yourselves as hard as you possibly can without getting injured. Do you get any tuition from the coaching staff about how to achieve that balance?
No, I guess like a lot of it's just learning and I guess learning your own body as well. So that's the big thing that I've got out of last year, is sort of learning when to push and when to back off. And I think it's quite a hard thing as an athlete. You always want to do more and push harder. And sometimes like you need someone to tell you to back off. And I don't know, I guess last year with being the first year in the single as well, like it was a little bit unknown, and there's probably a few things that took a bit more of a toll than both I thought and Noel thought as well. So I think like we've sort of learned from that, and sort of learned how much recovery I need after racing, especially. And then that's the key thing that we're really trying to get right this year.
We do have quite a broad support team as well, so there's a lot of support staff dedicated to making sure that we A, are training hard enough, and B, not training too hard, because you can quite easily slip over that knife's edge and be in a bit of a danger zone for exhaustion or injury, I guess. We're constantly monitored by physiologists who are recording the data from every training session that we have, so that's heart rates, durations, and they've got it all down to zones, and lactates are taken quarterly to make sure that we're training in the right heart rate zones for our lactic acid in our blood that we're producing in our muscles. So there is a scientific side to it as well, which, while it isn't taken as Bible, it is constantly reflected upon. And as Robbie was saying, it's kind of a learning process where the physiologist, their team, manages us and monitors.
And that's individual. So, Tom, in a crew, you all might be erging, but aiming for different scores?
That's right. Yeah. So over the years, our numbers change quite regularly, depending on how we perform during certain tests, like our lactate tests, where they will measure the volume of lactic acid in your blood. And so that's exactly right. In the 8, there are some sessions where everybody will be aiming for a slightly different number. So it is, our programs are all tailor-made to a point, and that's the thing that I love about the pair, is that it can be so much more specific, and it's easier to get 2 people more aligned than it is 8, and you can really work hard on a couple of things together.
That's brilliant. So on that theme, when you're out in the boat, what are you personally striving for, Tom?
Consistency is really what I aim for, especially in a pair, doing the exact same thing, or as near as I can. Doing the exact same thing every stroke makes it that much easier for whoever I'm rowing with. But that is, anybody that's been in a rowing boat will know how just how hard that is. So it will be a work on for me for a very, very long time, I can imagine.
Do you keep a rudder in the pair?
I do control the rudder where I'm sitting, so that's always something else to have in the back of my mind, to make sure that we're going straight and we're not going to hit anything. Doesn't always work out, but we get there most of the time.
That one's a work in progress over the technical side of things, isn't it?
That's right. Pair's my favourite boat, and it takes one to know one. I'm a complete control freak, and I'm the one who has to have the rudder because I am the better one at steering. Doesn't matter who I'm rowing with. Robbie, what do you strive for when you're out in the boat?
I guess always trying to get that perfect stroke. So it's always, I guess, technical focus, because I think that's where I think you can get the most gains from what you're doing. Like, everyone in the world is already probably as close to as fit and as strong as they can be, but if you can be technically better, then I think there's like a huge amount to be gained there. So I guess that's the main thing that I'm working on, is trying to work at the right intensity and in the right zone, but mostly just trying to perfect my technique and do what works for me as well. Like, there are so many different ways to row the boat, and I think that's what I've really found in the last few years is a way that works for me, and that sort of high rating. It's a little bit shorter and sort of more of a punchy style. And it's the same way I rode in the double before, and sort of we used to rate 38, 39, 40 in the double, and I've just taken that exact same setup and gearing and rating into the single, and it seems to work for me. So I guess like I'm just trying to get that even better than it already is, and like Tom said, consistency is key.
You have a fan, you may not know this, but we published a blog post written by one of your fans who analysed your stroke. I'll send you the link. He was extremely impressed. Michael, when you're in the boat, what numbers are you looking at? Do you have a meter that you keep with you?
Gosh, well, recently I've kind of, when I was last rowing, it almost felt like I was sitting at NASA's Space Control Center with all of the interfaces that I've got sitting in front of me. We've recently gotten to the point where we have a constant feed of our watts, so like a piezometer on the gate that reads the force and is feeding that to us. So I'm looking at watts. I'm aware of the watts, but I like to not rely on the numbers and be constantly chasing the numbers, because while numbers are great and on the erg they may be everything, when you're out on the water, if you're not rowing as well, as if you're not in time, you're not synced up correctly, if you're not rowing as well as you potentially could be, that's where a lot of the inefficiency is going to come from, rather than the watts or the numbers. So I do get the rating, I get the split, which are probably, in my eyes, more important than the actual watts, because the rating's the rating, but the actual speed is a result of how well you're rowing plus the watts. So if something's missing, then I'd rather work it out than look at the watts and say the watts are down, I must work harder. I'd rather feel for it, because you're usually pretty aware if you're not working hard enough.
What about the other two of you? What do you look at?
For me, sometimes the less is better, where you can sit there and listen to the sounds that you're making and feel the movements that you're creating, is sometimes a lot more effective than a number in front of your face, and it's a lot more relaxing as well. As relaxing as you can be as you're sitting on the water flogging yourself.
Yeah, it's the same way I feel about it as well. I think I've got 6 buttons I've got to turn on and off before and after every row, and so many numbers with the watts and angles and speed, stroke rate. One that I quite like is distance per stroke, and possibly because I count strokes when I row. So if I know how far I'm going each stroke, then I know how far it's going to be till the end of the row. Roughly.
Yeah. Yikes.
But I tend not to look at the watts at all. I sort of have a vague idea of what my heart rate is, so I might look at it every now and then. I know what my rating is, but I'll more try and, rather than trying to sit on a specific rating, I'll try and sit on a good rhythm. And then I think boat speeds, like Mike said, the most important thing. And I think it's really important to almost aim for the best boat speed for the lowest number of watts, because that's the most efficient way to row. So if we're out there trying to hit a certain number of watts, and then you're just pushing harder to get the watts, you're not necessarily going to make the boat faster, and you're just going to be almost slowing it down sometimes. So I think you want to increase the boat speed, and you want the best boat speed for the lowest number of watts.
That's very profound and a great insight. And Tom, just so that you know, there are other people who count strokes.
For an entire session, that I definitely couldn't. That would drive me absolutely insane.
I count in lots of like 25, 50, or 100.
Yeah, there's a man I've rowed with who told me exactly how many strokes it takes to go around the circumference of Lake Karapiro. He knows. So there you go.
I might try it one time and see how far I can get.
You can row with me any day. We're going to take a short break for one of our supporters at the moment. Support for today's show comes from Health IQ, a life insurance agency who has the common sense to realise that athletes are healthier than the average population. They're clever fellows. No having to explain why your body's high quality and an amazingly fit asset. These guys know that you are less likely, in fact, 56% less likely to have heart disease if you're physically active. And rowers aren't just active. We know we're super active compared to your gym bunnies. You can get special rates for life insurance and show your support for RowingChat by visiting www.healthiq.com/rowing and ask for a free quote. We know you all enjoy RowingChat, and so by following through with our sponsors, we can earn some money to pay for our costs. Please do it now. Open a browser so you don't forget to get a quote. healthiq.com/rowing. Now back to the show. I've got a little bit of a fantasy rowing question for each of you guys. If you could pick any athlete, alive or dead, from anywhere in the world to do a double with, who would you choose to row with?
That's a tough one. Can't say I've ever thought about that.
Really? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people that would be great to row with. I know Rob Woodell would be one person that I think would be really amazing to row with, obviously because of his power and everything. But there's some of the technical rowers that I've really looked up to over the years, like Thomas Lange. He's probably one of my favourite technicians, so he'd be someone that would be really cool to row with from a technical point of view.
Yeah, that is a question that I've never really given much thought to. But I'd love to get Noel Donaldson, my coach, out on a double one day. He's not dead, but so it should be possible. But he's given me a lot of pointers to look at over the years. Sometimes friendly, sometimes born out of frustration. But it'll be interesting to just get in a boat with him and just see if it's easier said than done.
Hey, the man's a coxswain.
Yeah, I'm not asking him to pull the side out of the boat. I'm looking to give him a bit of coaching myself one day.
Well, I'll see if I can fix that one up for you, with your wish. Now, Noel coaches all of you. He's your coach for this season. Now, different coaches are often quite different, not just in the words they use, but also their actual approach to how they train a crew. Tell us a little bit about what it's like having Noel as a coach and what is his particular style, Michael.
Noel as a coach, he's, like you said, there's many different ways to coach a crew. Obviously there's the types of coaches who are just absolute slave drivers, and they still get results in some cases where they just kilometers after kilometers after kilometers, watts, and eventually it pays off. I would say Noel, while he does stress that at times, I'd say in my eyes, he stresses that at the right times, but takes more of an inclination towards the technical side of things. So at times that can be quite frustrating, having him constantly droning and catches down the lake. But I quite like how much he does drill the technical side of things, because, as Robbie was touching on earlier, that just leads to a more efficient stroke. I don't think the residents on the side of Lake Karapiro like it, because Noel's quite big on the megaphone use at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, but I like his coaching style.
I think because he's got the different boats as well, and I don't normally train alongside the men's pair, that he'll show up in the last 3 or 4K of a row and then try and use up 26K's worth of words in the last 3 or 4K. So I told him last week that I'll give him a 10-word limit per K, and he can't save them up till the end of the row. If he hasn't used them, he's lost them. So he does like to talk, but I think he's open to new ideas and ways of thinking, and I guess trying to find what works best for each crew. So I guess that's something that we're learning together, is what works best for me in the single and the best approach to take. So we sit down together and sit down with the physiologists and sort of try and figure something out that really works for me.
Outside of his coaching style, what Robbie just touched on, I think that probably is Noel's biggest strength, is that he is always willing to listen to his athletes. So as we develop, he's also developing. I think that's something that's really can be undervalued in a coach. There's not a lot worse, in my opinion, than a coach who's stuck in their ways and will be forcing a coaching style upon a crew that may not particularly resonate with, because every crew is different, and some crews can be coached in some ways that others can't. And the fact that Noel was an open coach, I think that would mean that he'd be able to coach most any crew around the world.
Being the Australian in him, he's never short of a story, is Noel.
Go on. What's the best one that you've heard that's for public?
For public consumption, I'm not too sure, but he does bring a lot of them out onto the water. Not so much stories, but his anecdotes of pick the beer off the counter, or it was calls us gorillas in the mist if we're rowing a bit rough, or yeah, he's got a story or a quip for most things.
Just like the week before I injured myself, he was trying to tell me to row a bit longer, and he was telling me to picture I'm like a monkey, and so that was just to try and get a bit more length, which I saw the common side of that. I thought we were rowing up and down the lake here, and this guy was telling me to think I'm like a monkey. So I think it brought a smile to my face, and he saw that it brought a smile to my face, and he rolled with that and started making monkey sounds and going over the lake. And the woman's aide was beside us, and I think they stopped rowing to laugh at the old guy. But he can be quite entertaining in those kinds of ways.
I think a little bit of humour often makes you relax.
Sure does.
I had a Kiwi coach back in the UK, and when he was coaching me, I'd never met anyone knowingly from New Zealand, and I certainly hadn't heard a very strong New Zealand accent. And we were a women's 8, and he kept saying this thing, and our bow pair goes to the coxswain, "Hey, coxswain, can you repeat what he's saying?" And she whispers, "I can't understand him." And we thought he was saying, "Celebrate the finish." What he was actually saying was accelerate the finish.
We have our own way of speaking English down in New Zealand.
It's very special, and I'm better at it now that I live here.
Just like the rowing, I'd like to think that our accent is just efficient. We can say the same amount of words in less time and understand each other.
I think Noel Donaldson's 10 words per kilometre. I'm waiting for that one, Robbie. It's great. When things aren't going so well, when you're training, it doesn't matter whether we're talking in the gym, on the erg, or on the water, everyone self-coaches. You have a little voice in your head, I'm guessing, who is giving you advice. So when things aren't going so well, what do you say to yourself, Tom?
Oh, I try to ignore that little voice as much as I can, and I give myself a target, and I try to hit that target, whether it's a number, or whether it's a force number, or a speed, or a weight. I just focus on trying to hit that, and like you said, sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes you just got to push through and just do the best you can. And then if you don't hit it, you just got to come back following day or the next session and not get caught up with not being able to do it last time, or how am I going to go again the next time. You just got to focus on doing as well as you can during that moment, and just keep your eyes forward.
Robbie?
I think just breaking it up into the smaller chunks. So like I said, counting strokes, or just getting to breaking the row up into smaller parts, or breaking the week up into sessions. I think definitely one of the hardest times is being injured when you are sort of on the watt bike day after day, week after week, which I guess Mike could know a lot about after the last few years. But it just, when there's not a lot of, like when you're rowing, you can erg, you're in the gym, you can cycle, so it keeps it more fresh and interesting. And obviously we're rowers, so we prefer to be out there on the water. So I think in those sessions, like I do a lot of on-off sort of pieces, so it sort of breaks the session up in smaller bits. You can concentrate on holding a certain number or a certain speed for a set period of time, and then you stop and rest and then do it again. And I think that's one way that sort of makes it easier to get through. But yeah, I think a positive attitude definitely has a lot to do with it as well. Like, I don't know, some days you're not feeling great and you still got to go out there and race and do well. And I think also taking confidence from the times that I know that I've gone out there and raced well when I haven't necessarily been feeling that great beforehand. So I think that helps too.
Michael?
Having only rowed crew boats, being a sweeper, when things aren't going so well in a crew boat, I would say that probably the most important thing in my eyes is making sure that everyone is focusing on the same thing and on the same page. When the more people that there are in the boat, the more likely that we'll be coming to different conclusions on what is making the boat not go well. And so that's where the role of a coxswain or the lead speaker in the boat, the bow seat of the coxswain's for. That's where their role is crucial, because that's when they can really bring everyone together and onto the same page on either one technical point, or whether it's something physical that they want to introduce to bring everyone back on the same page. I'd say it's having that group focus on one point. That's the most important thing, to turn a bad row into a good row.
Do you get psychology coaching or training?
We have psychologists available to us. People use them differently. Some people like to check in and make sure everything is on track. They take more of a proactive approach. Then equally, there are a large number of athletes that use a psychologist only as a reactive, kind of like a response to something that's not going well or something that's gone wrong. And I mean, they do add great value in those situations. I'm more of one of those reactive athletes that when something's gone wrong, I will then go to a psychologist and get them to help me kind of get my head back on track. So we have got those people as part of the support staff that help us.
What's your bugbear then, Tom, psychology-wise?
I don't use psychology too much. I quite enjoy. I do nut out my own problems quite a lot, and sometimes it doesn't go so well. So maybe I should use those that are available to us a bit more. But sometimes the challenges, I do quite enjoy trying to figure out ways that I can get somewhere by myself.
Becca, this is being recorded, right? So I'd like to take this segment and play it back to Tom afterwards, if that's all right.
Anything is possible. Do you suffer from pre-race nerves, Robbie?
Yeah, definitely. And I find that it's a good thing. So I've learned that when I'm nervous, I race really well. So if I wasn't nervous, I think that would make me more worried, if that makes sense. So I guess I have a really good routine that probably starts about 3 hours before a race, and it's the same every time, whether it's a Winter Series race here, a domestic race, a World Cup, World Champs, whatever. So I just sort of know how I feel, and it's generally pretty similar every time. So that gives me confidence that I've raced well feeling like this before. This is good. This helps me race well. So I guess if something was different and I wasn't, if you're not nervous, you obviously don't care enough about it. So you get nervous because you care and because it's important to you. So I find that nerves, I do get nervous, but I feel like having a routine helps me sort of deal with those nerves, and then I've had the confidence that I can race well feeling like that.
What about you two? You race together?
I'll talk on behalf of Tom, actually. Tom does this interesting thing that whenever he's nervous, he makes it incredibly obvious to everyone else because he has an ear-to-ear grin. And you'll see it in most of his start line photos. Tom's got this absolutely sheepish grin on his face. That's just when you know, okay, Tom's nervous. He's good to race. But yeah, on top of what Robbie said, I think the nerves are something that every rower has to come to terms with and has to be able to deal with. But if the nerves weren't there, you're probably not that invested in the race. Like if you're nervous for the race because you want it to go well. So if you aren't nervous, are you really wanting to win, or are you just there to participate?
What's your pre-race routine, Tom?
Yeah, like Robbie, it does start quite a wee way out. I love having a big meal a few hours before a race, so then I'm not eating just before the race. Love staying hydrated. Causes problems before I just about go out on the water, but I get through those. And yeah, like the guys say, the nerves are important. And then by the time I've got about 50 to 40 minutes before I'm on the start line, I'm usually, if not on the water, I'm pretty close to being on the water. So yeah, the nerves have enough time to come and go and come again. So it's trying to find that routine.
When do the nerves actually disappear for you?
For me, it's on that buzzer, sort of 2 or 3 strokes after that buzzer, and then it's all my thoughts are on the technique and what I'm doing, and on the next stroke, and they tend to go off for me after that buzzer.
It's quite easy, isn't it? Once you've got a job of work to do, for some reason the nerves aren't there. Very odd thing, the human mind. Robbie, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the fact that you're not the only single sculler in the New Zealand squad this year, as I'm sure the entire world now knows. Tell us about the context for your personal racing for this season.
So, yeah, obviously Mahe and I are both going to the World Cups, and then only one of us can go to the World Champs. So whoever finishes higher at the Lucerne World Cup will go to World Champs. So I guess that doesn't really affect too much what I'm doing this year. Like we're treating it very similar to the build up to the World Cups last year, where obviously I broke the world record and went really fast in Poznan, and then had a few injuries and was out of the boat for a couple of weeks between the 2 World Cups, but still managed to back it up in Lucerne. So I think this year probably the approach to the second World Cup will be very similar, with maybe tweaking things a little bit so don't have the same sort of injury problems after the second World Cup, and just to make sure that I'm really on form for the third World Cup, which is the important one for me to get to World Champs this year. So obviously had a really good domestic season racing here in New Zealand, and won all of the singles races against the other guys in the squad, and also managed to win the double and the quad at nationals, and then teamed up with Tom in the A. We came second, so had a good domestic season, and I feel like I sort of stepped on from there and had a really good couple of months of training since then. So yeah, just trying to keep everything on track and keep everything improving in little bits. I don't think there's one area that really stands out that I need to fix or improve at the moment. It's just like little technical improvements, strength, fitness, all that sort of stuff. And the big one is really staying healthy, so not getting sick, not getting injured, and staying on top of the recovery.
So Mahe has a different coach from you, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So obviously we line up together twice a week in the squad sessions, but the rest of the time we're doing our own thing.
Yeah. And he is presumably still doing lots of biking stuff, because I think it's public knowledge that he rows once a day. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right.
So really interesting for the squad as a whole, and obviously a nice challenge for the selectors. But in a way, what a shame that a country produces top athletes in the same category at the same time, and you're only allowed to send one. It would be great if we could line you all up.
I think it's actually been really good for me as well, having that I guess extra bit of motivation every week. It's one thing training against your opponents when they're on the other side of the world and you don't necessarily see them every day, but I think it's even more motivating for me. And obviously Mahe's been one of the best single scullers in the world ever, with 3 Olympic medals, 2 gold and 5 world championships. So to have someone like that to sort of right there in front of you every day to sort of benchmark yourself against and try and be better than, it's really cool. As well as everyone else in the team. I think that's one of the reasons we do so well. And I do a lot of sessions with the women's pair, who are the world record holders, the women's double, who are world champions, and the lightweight women's double as well.
Yeah, because you're similar boat speed, is that right? A heavy women's double and a men's single?
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty nice times. I'd like to just wrap up with some anecdotes from you guys. What's the funniest moment you've had in your rowing career thus far?
Well, there are just too many to count after six years in a growing men's eight, starting from our ages ranging from 18, and now the oldest are about 26, around there. So we've been together for a very long time, and there's just so many to choose from, and there's a lot there that just pop back into your head after the weirdest cues, and it's good to be able to sort of share them with the guys when they come up. But to pick one out of the lot would be really difficult.
I think, yeah, probably the funnest thing with being with the same group of guys for 4 to 5 years in a row is that it's just the small things that keep coming up day to day. Like, we're constantly bringing up old jokes. And one time back in 2013, one of the guys screwed up and said something funny, and he's still reminded of it to this day. It's his nickname on the group chat. Just small things like that every day we constantly reminded of that one time that we did something silly, or Stephen made a mistake of some sort. Like, it's just the small things.
And have you all grown beards, or is that just something in your publicity photos on Facebook?
Oh no, they come and go. They come and go.
I think in the wise words of Tom Murray, it's if you want to race like an animal, you got to look like an animal. So,
yeah.
Guys, it's been an absolute delight having you as my guests. Thank you so much for giving up your Sunday afternoon on your rest day. I really appreciate it. It's been brilliant. Now, if the listeners would like to follow you online, where can they see you publishing things on social? How can they get a hold of you?
Instagram is the main one that I use, which is Robbie_Manson.
Mine's Instagram as well. It's just Michael Brake with no spaces.
I'm somewhat absent from social media at this point. I have been meaning to start up an Instagram account. It's up there, but I'm going to start posting things in the near future, hopefully. I have been saying that for a long time.
I have a very special group of friends, Tom, who are my Hotmail friends, and you can join them.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Guys, thank you. It's been brilliant. Till next time, goodbye.